For being here during this summer heat. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and start with roll call. Ms. Palacios.
Governing Board President Denise Reese, absent. Governing Board Clerk Dr. John Sparks.
Present.
Governing Board Member Anthony Bruno. Governing Board Member Amy Petersmark.
Present.
Governing Board Member Raul Rodriguez.
Present.
District Administration Superintendent Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Chief Financial Officer Lisette Huey.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Darlene Robinson.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Scott Downs.
Here.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to approval of the revised agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sparks. After your review and consideration, I do recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion about the revised agenda? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Go ahead and approve the minutes from the previous board meeting on May 28th. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sparks. Members of the board, in your packet, you have draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting back on May the 28th. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend approval at this time.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Go ahead and move on to superintendent reports. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sparks, members of the board. Although the mercury is probably peaking at 105, or I hear maybe even close to 110 by Father's Day weekend, the work goes on, and there is a tremendous amount of activity going on around our schools. Today, I had the opportunity to visit a couple of the schools and see a lot of these projects in action. Our bond projects are in full force. I was at Wrights and Ridge today and also at Walden Grove. And if you look at some of these pictures, you can tell that these projects are coming to completion. They're on schedule, on or under budget, right, Mr. Downs? And also on proper timing to their completion timeline, hopefully to be done by the time that school starts, which is exciting. As you can tell, a lot of them are new buildings, new additions. There's also a lot of painting and flooring going in. I walked into the office at Walden Grove and I was like jumping over tiles and stuff, you know, because that's when you do it in the summertime. But it's looking really neat, and it's great to be able to reinvest in these facilities on that level. And again, with much gratitude to our community, which is the only reason that these types of investments on this magnitude are possible. Another project that I saw just in my travels today, there's new lights, which is one of the bond projects, new lights going in on our stadiums. They're high energy efficient lights with all of the modern capabilities and functionalities, which make our events, will make those events even more special. I'm envisioning our big marching band festivals of which we're hosting one, a big one this fall, our football, our soccer, our community events, our ROTC, just already envisioning those events in our community. So super excited about that. I also had a chance while I was on these respective campuses today to walk in on this year's version of the summer school program. And you know, education in the year 2025 is not per se the traditional concrete school goes out and nothing happens. The high school program has 240 high school students that are taking classes to catch up, get ahead, or some variation of making room on schedules for future learning and educational programs. 240 at the high school, about 140, 150 at the K-8 program, which is this year being housed at Wrights and Ridge. So it's just neat. Schools aren't schools without a bunch of children running around, and it's nice to walk around and engage with them and ask them questions about their work. So lots of things going on. And finally, in my report this evening, I would be remiss as the proud superintendent if I did not wish our beloved Wildcats good luck in the NCAA College World Series. And one of 3 starting pitchers is a Red Wolf, Owen Kremkowski, who graduated, I think 2023, Amy, you might be able to help me. He's a sophomore. And very, very proud of our Wildcats. Wish them luck. Go Red Wolves and bear down. That's all for this evening for me.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to governing board reports. Mrs. Petersmark.
We're live. Thank you. As Dr. V said, everything's still in full swing, even though some people aren't aware of that. I got to peek in on the expansion of the weight room at Walden. It looks fantastic. And I love the paint. It's popping out. So cool. A lot of the kids are really excited about that. So exciting. And I wanted to give a shout out to all the teachers and everyone making summer school possible. It's fantastic of going above and beyond to teach over this summer. And also shout out to the booster clubs. Be remiss not to mention them. There's 5 of them working lunches at Walden and helping bring different lunches to the kiddos so they can buy those during summer school, which is amazing. And so many parents, family members, siblings, friends, everyone always pitching in all year for the booster clubs to make things possible. So I just want to thank everybody. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bruno.
I actually had the opportunity to show up at 5:30 in the morning over at Walden Grove. I took a little tour all on my own, drove the loop behind the school and looked at some of the construction just as it was in the morning. I will say at 5:30 in the morning, there were a lot of people working. There were a lot of things going on the construction project. And it was well worth it to be there. It was actually cool in the morning. And then I left there and I did the same thing here on the main campus. I toured back behind the wood shop and over behind the auto shop. I was pretty impressed behind the wood shop, and I'm going to assume the projects behind the wood shop are for sale because they had probably 100 or 150 benches out there and dog houses and other things that were done by the students. And from there, I actually traveled and looked at some of the items that we were auctioning off. And then over to the bus barn. I have to say, seeing all the buses lined up was really impressive. And you could pick out the new ones versus the old ones readily. And I know that we're moving to change them out, but there are some in there that would need to retire. And probably if they were a horse, other things would happen to them. But all in all, it was a good morning, a good trip, and to see everything that's still going on, and to know that even though there are no students here, we have dedicated people all across the district working. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you very much. And I will suspend with my report and move on with the next item on the agenda. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is call to the public. Let me go ahead and read the consideration and discussion and comments and concerns from the public. Those wishing to address the governing board may do so at this time or at the board's discretion at the time the item appears on the agenda. All speakers are requested to hold their comments to 2 minutes or less. 20 minutes will be allowed for both online and in-person comments in accordance with Arizona open meeting law. Board members may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding issues not on the agenda. Any comments not read during the agenda item will still be entered into the public record. And I think we have just the one, Ms. Pelosi. Okay. And I think Jill Fabian.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, and thank you, board. Jill Fabian, Serenity First Counseling. We've been working with the district for many years now, and we just came by today to tell you about some of the events that we have coming up. We are offering a youth coalition, which meets tomorrow night at 5:30. We're having Panda, so any youth that want to come by, all the services we provide as a 501c3 through the governor's office is at no cost to the community. And then we wanted to let everybody know we will be talking about Childhood 2.0 and showing a film with a screening and a discussion on August 6th at 6 p.m. at our location at 75 West Calle de las Tiendas in Green Valley. You can look us up at serenityfirstcounseling.com. And the most exciting is August 27th, our next series for strengthening families. I know schools will be back in session by then, and kids will be all settled in. So families, please look us up at serenityfirstcounseling.com and sign up for the next series of strengthening families. Thank you so much for having us this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. 2026 proposed budget, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sparks, members of the board. First of all, it sounds kind of interesting to say 2026 already. Time does fly. And after having gone through a few of these together, Dr. Sparks, I know that you're aware of the fact that the approval of the district's proposed budget is one of the statutory obligations of the board. It's a very important function as stewards of the public's trust and the public's dollar. I'm pleased to share that despite the unique challenges and the fact that we are in a time of much change in so many different ways, broadly, across our country and our world, but also locally, you know, as demographics change and different legislative changes take place. And there is a lot of uncertainty, but our approach is steady, thoughtful, focused, balanced. And I think you'll hear when Lizette describes the proposed budget that we're acknowledging of some of the changes that we're facing, but also making steady decisions that are going to promote the growth and the continued direction of our initiatives and our strong programs. So Lizette, if you could just kind of go through and make your presentation, and I'll make a few last comments before the recommendation, if that would be okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, Dr. Sparks, members of the board, district administration, and community members. Tonight, I'll be presenting, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, the proposed 2026 budget. And just before we begin with the budget, again, I just wanted to highlight a few points to the budget. This budget was developed with a very conservative approach. And again, that's just because it's reflecting the decline in enrollment statewide as well. So not just solely in our district, but mainly statewide, and all of the changes that are happening demographically. Also with that is another consideration is the state budget. It has not been finalized yet. And so we also don't want to count, what do they say, count your chickens before they hatch. So although we have the 2% inflation factor, I don't want to add that at this time until the budget passes. And so you'll see that that amount is not included in this budget at this time. Additionally, the carry forward that's listed is also very conservative. As you all know, and you've been through this process before, is that our budget continues. So even though our fiscal year ends on June 30th, we still pay bills until August. And so we want to make sure that there's enough money in the bucket now to pay for current year expenditures all the way up until August. At August timeframe, that's how we perform the AFR, we do the reporting, and then once the reporting comes out, we'll know our finalized carry forward, and we can manage that. And there's some flexibility in regards to adding that amount and those carry forward monies in December and in May, depending on how that goes. I still anticipate that what we have reserved for this current year is there's a big cushion. And so I do project that it's going to be higher than this. But again, we just wanted to take a conservative approach as we start the new year. We've always had this approach. I think that it has suited the district very well, and it's helped us to ensure our fiscal responsibility in the district. And it also guards us against over expenditures. So again, we just want to make sure that there's a process in place, and it's not nothing new. So with that, I'll go ahead and begin with our revenue control limit and kind of going through line by line like we normally do. So for our maintenance and operation, again, this is our main budget that we're proposing for the base support level, $40,225,033. For our transportation revenue control limit, we're not expecting any changes. So that is at $2,588,013. For a total revenue control limit of $42,813,046. With that, we're allowed to add any adjustments to our maintenance and operation. Again, we are grateful for our community members because we have a 14% override. And that override is based off a prior year ADM. So that's not including into our current year average daily membership, but instead this is on prior year. So we'll see an increase in our override amount. So our total amount for our proposed budget for our override is $6,392,748. There are no other adjustments at this time. In the last year, or all these past fiscal years, we knew that the proposition that passed in 2016 of 123, that adjustment, we knew that it was going to sunset this year. So we've already made those budget allocations into next year because we anticipated that last year was the last year in 2025. Additionally, with our maintenance and operation, we have our energy and water savings fund. We know what our payments are going to be every year. We have a schedule for that, and so we've already prepared for that. And that payment is $1,233,360. Our total maintenance and operation allocation, this is just our regular allocation without our carry forward at this time, is $47,972,434. In addition, like I mentioned, we're able to add our carry forward. I would say that we have a very healthy carry forward, and this is still a conservative amount, again, because we want to leave money in this current fiscal year to make sure that we have paid off all our bills and that there's nothing outstanding. And so I'm projecting at this current time $13,166,499 for a total maintenance and operation budget limit of $61,138,933. Are there any questions in regards to maintenance and operation? I'll move on to what we refer to as our DAA, our District Additional Assistance. And with that, we get to calculate our DAA. Even though that the state says that we're funded on current year, there are certain parts of the budget that are off of a prior fiscal year, and this is another one. Our District Additional Assistance is off of prior year ADM. And so we have the proposed shows $3,624,077. Again, our capital override, and these are for our textbooks adoptions, our computers and things of that nature. It is for 7 years and it's $1 million every year. And so again, thank you to our taxpayers who have approved that override. And so we get to add that to our budget of $1 million. We're not adding or proposing that we change any DAA to M&O, although it's allowed. We're not doing that at this time, and we haven't actually for a while. We're not moving any DAA to M&O. The other adjustments, we did have a one-time fiscal 25. It's our free and reduced allocation that the state did give us. We knew that that was one time, so we're not anticipating to add that to our budget this year. And so that's where you see the other adjustments. The interest, I normally don't add the interest until the end because in that way, that's just additional monies that we can use for carry forward money. So our total DA allocation is $4,624,077. Again, we have a projection for our carry forward because we are projecting, and it is been built into our budget even this year because we know we have anticipated expenditures. We have bond expenditures that we're paying out of bond, but there's other things that we might need that we would like to make sure that we have availability in our DAA. And so I'm projecting for next year a $2 million carry forward from this current year. Again, it could be higher. It just depends, and we'll know that in October. So for our district additional assistance, our DAA limit, I'm proposing $6,624,077. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Valenzuela for the final recommendation.
Thank you. Just a couple comments, and I would begin with acknowledging the tireless and very methodical efforts that Lizette and her team have put into this, because I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit to, I think, an important point that has always been a focus for us is we're really striving. I talked about how uncertain things are in so many ways. I mean, we've all looked at how much we've paid for eggs in the last several months, and those type of uncertainties as just as an example. And we've tried in such an uncertain world to create certainty and consistency. And one of the things that we can say with all sincerity and confidence is that when all of this settles in, it's fully anticipated that the overall school tax rate, combined primary tax rate and the secondary, will still be at, or I think Lizette actually has numbers, it's actually slightly below what it is for this year. And it's really a result of very methodical, very intentional financial planning. I hope what you see is when you look at the numbers and the little table that Lizette presented is a cautious approach, which I think is the wise way to be as stewards of the public's dollar, but also optimistic. We've talked about how we were not reducing force or laying large-scale layoffs or anything like that. Our programs are healthy. We're not making big changes in programs. Our programs, our directions, our initiatives are going forward, but it's conservative, it's sound, it's steady. Lizette mentioned three things that I think are important. One is, growth is a variable, always is a variable. Historically in our district, it's just been kind of something that we've assumed, and it has been a trend. It's been assumed with reason. We've just always been growing. We've always been increasing from year to year. For many reasons, demographics, policy-oriented, just shifts in population. Districts across the state and country are experiencing a shift in regards to public school enrollment. So we just have to adapt. We just did it very cautiously. But I think one thing that Lizette didn't exactly mention, but I really appreciate her philosophical bent on this, is it's easier to tighten and then to broaden the gaze as things become more favorable, which we think they are. Like she predicted an enrollment decline. I believe, and our data suggests that although we're dealing with these issues, I should say the rate of decline in the second half of this year appears to be narrowing, which hopefully those trends will continue through our initiatives, our communication, and our program development efforts. So that's a variable. She mentioned the inflation factor. That is a constitutionally obligated requirement that the state has to at least provide that investment. That they call it the inflation factor, right? And the other thing is that the budget is not this static thing. It's always in motion. Some of you might remember, if you've been around a while, Lizette and Charlotte used to talk about the budget wheel or the budget circle. It's always, so as we kind of tighten up, close out this year and capture additional incomes after all the bills are paid, fully anticipate that the budget is going to continue to expand and grow beyond what's recommended. But even with this very more conservative approach, thanks to a bigger, more visionary approach to being fiscally conservative, we have the proverbial safety net through intentional savings and our carry forward to confidently put forth a budget that we know we will be able to effectively manage and to deploy for the delivery of our important educational services. So with that, I would at this point like to recommend the board's approval of the proposed budget for fiscal year 26.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, is that, thank you to you. Board members who are in districts that are not financially stable. And that's how the course works. And the ability that, you know, that I can go out there and say to the community that we're in that type of situation. Thank you so much. Kudos to you, team. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
I think I'd just like to add, I think I agree with Mr. Rodriguez, and the concept of a secure school budget, I think is more than just we have a little carry forward or we are conservative. The level of carry forward has been pretty relatively consistent since I've been on the board. It's, you know, that kind of 15 to 20% mark we're rolling forward of the overall budget. And I think I look around the state and school districts in receivership, school districts shutting buildings down, school districts recovering from clawbacks from the county that mischarged rates, the, you know, school districts recovering from treasurers that embezzled money. I look around the state and see all these financial woes that other districts are in. And I think it makes me feel pretty secure that we have, that the carry forward is not just the rainy day fund, or we need to replace a big item. It also prevents us from having to make harder decisions when the world around us sometimes doesn't behave well, right? You know, we're down in Nogales and they're having, you know, there was some stuff with their county treasurer and they had to get all this, you know, figure out how to manage that missing money. That gets a lot easier when you have good, solid carry forward and good, solid conservative practices. And I think in the last few weeks, I've seen numerous articles that this isn't just Arizona. I think NPR said, you know, student enrollment cliff. And they were talking about universities, because we're now feeling this here, where we're feeling it at the elementary, the middle school, you know, hopefully not ever at the high school, right? Although our high school is relatively flat or even growing, I think, at the high school level. But I think, you know, looking at this from a societal perspective, I'm glad that we're in a good spot. And I hope people that do watch this or read this budget hear that we're making decisions now to be as conservative as possible with that budget so that we aren't having to ever lay people off. And hopefully that never happens, because we've taken this really strategic, consistent approach to budget and, you know, budget proposal. So I think I'm because I have to be honest, I look around the state and I'm a little worried, right? The child pool is shrinking. There's just less kids. And I think that's not just us. We didn't do anything wrong. They're not coming to us. We're doing, I mean, our enrollments is fine. It's there just are less children. And people are having less children, and they're having children later, so therefore they're having smaller families. And I would hope that, and I know we're watching that, and as we continue on this budget process in connection with that, I'd hope as a district, when we get those pieces of data that are worthy of kind of putting out so that the public knows where we are demographically. And I know we're one of the few areas that still has growing housing. So we've been blessed, even in today's world, even if that just means we're flat. That's better than down, right, or significantly down. So I appreciate it. And I think hopefully people see that we're taking decisive, when you are and your team are planning so that we don't get caught having to make hard decisions versus making them methodically and stuff like so.
Right,
I don't know.
right. And I think another thing just to add to that is that the budget process has changed. If you remember in the past, we used to have prior year funding. And so when it's prior year, you knew what those numbers are.
Yep.
When you do current year, it's based off of an average daily membership. And that can go like this. Well, I can't imagine having our budget and having our schools do this all the time, right? So if we reserve that right to say, okay, let's be conservative and start, and then we can always add to it, it's easier and it's a better pill to swallow, and it's easier for our schools and our programs so that they're not hurting and they're not doing that roller coaster ride throughout the year as well. So that's why we use this approach.
Yeah, and I remember the rather large battle across the state to try to prevent same-year funding, because it really does put a lot of unknown. It's really hard. The state expects us to hire people and employ people and have systems in place and meet state and federal requirements for certain kinds of services, but yet then they won't tell us, like, oh, we'll tell you in a few months what your budget is really what they're saying, which I think is still doesn't make sense to me. I think I sent a few emails or made a few phone calls because it just doesn't make sense. It's not a good way to run anything that's kind of governmentally structured. It's not good to have that flexibility. Too much. It's uncertainty, not flexibility. It's uncertainty.
Correct.
Thank you for pointing that out.
I'd like to add,
Mhm.
and I think I've said this to you before, but I greatly appreciate you and your staff. When you talk about the cycle of budgets in this school district, I have seen it at its worst. I have seen where we've had to build schools for expected growth and fight with the state to do that. And at this point in time, I appreciate having the carry forward and I'm going to say the fortitude to you and your staff to continue that and keep us in the good. And I greatly appreciate all the work and the extra hours that went into that. I don't think it's commonly seen in public what administration does and the role of administration when they look at a school district. And we as a board could not do what we do without you. And quite frankly, the community couldn't either. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, it's a team approach. Our cabinet, HR, curriculum, it's everyone, IT, it's everyone putting their best foot forward and having that same mindset and that same goal. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, truth and taxation, public hearing notification, and adopted budget public hearing notification.
Kind of a mouthful, isn't it, Dr. Sparks? And speaking to that point, it's listed, this agenda item is listed as one very long item, but if it would be okay, I'm going to kind of chunk it into two little pieces, so hopefully it can be communicated more clearly. So both of these items are basically a request for the board to approve what are basically public notifications. Now that the board has approved the proposed budget, of course, there's a period of time between now and the next meeting, exactly 2 weeks, where we anticipate coming back and making a recommendation for the board to exercise its authority to actually adopt that budget. And so the first item here is a recommendation that the board approve the notification to the public about its adopted budget, that we publicly make that available and notify in the manner that's required, notify the public of the proposed budget, the intended recommendation to approve that budget, which is a requirement of the budgeting process.
Correct.
Right.
That we're going to have a hearing before the board meeting.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, and that's what we'll be given notification of, as we do every year. So the other one listed on that item is called the Truth and Taxation Notice. And it's, again, in that same spirit of public notification. There's going to be a hearing. Because this is the board, as elected officials, make decisions about the public's dollar, the public's investment in public education. Truth and taxation is kind of a unique, I guess, additional element of that. It's outside of what Lizette just presented in the standard budget. And in particular, what we're talking about is an allowable investment through what's called adjacent ways. Tony would probably remember this even back in the days. It's the unique thing about it, and it's gotten more clear, maybe, if not more restrictive, at least more clear, that this is a levy that is very, very specific. You can't just do whatever. And it does require the board to adopt it, and hence the need to let the public be aware of it. But it's things like fire lanes. Basically, think connection from the outside to the inside for safety and for access. So fire lanes are things you can build, or roadways onto campuses. And a couple of current examples that are examples of adjacent ways used appropriately is we're contributing with our partners at the town of Sahuarita for the construction of a brand new traffic signal to support safe access onto the campus of Walden Grove High School. If you think back a couple of years, we had a similar partnership where we contributed from adjacent ways to the connection of our sewer system to the town so that it was more efficient, more sanitary, more effective, more cost effective. So those are the kind of things you can use for adjacent ways. So as you know, we levy it when there's a need. We don't just do it as a general point of practice. And as you know, as Mr. Bruno alluded to based on his self-guided tour around the campus today, there's a lot of new growth taking place around our schools with gratitude. We're growing intentionally and with resolve, but we've got new fine arts complexes, expanded athletic facilities, new classroom wings that are going in, new tennis courts, new special ed rooms, new preschool. So with all of that, with that growth, we need to intentionally plan and deploy resources for these allowable uses under adjacent ways. Now, the good news is that, again, through proactive visionary planning and intentionality, we still believe that what I told you prior includes this, that we will be able to do this while maintaining the overall school tax rate, primary and secondary together, at or below. Actually, she could give you the numbers. Lizette could give you them below the level of this year. Now, you might ask, how are you doing that? So with this vision of being proactive instead of reactive, we've been working, specifically Lizette's been working in her leadership role to take available resources that are accessible for the payment of bond debt that already exists. So you think about it as like paying down that debt, which gives you the capacity then to levy this money for these very specific objectives related to our current directions, and to do it in a way that still maintains that goal of consistency in terms of people's tax rates. It makes me very proud that we can serve with that level of professionalism, quality, and responsiveness to our community, and giving them that consistency. And so this evening, the only thing that after that long explanation, the only thing that I'm really, and by the way, I just saw it on my notes, if you're wondering about the amount, we're looking to levy $1.5 million in adjacent ways. But if you look at all of this evening, what I'm recommending to you is that you approve these notifications. One, the notification of public hearing regarding the budget, the adopted budget, and two, the notification that's required, as it's required under truth in taxation. Lizette, did I miss out on any ingredients that you think are worthy of mention before I ask the board to vote on this recommendation?
No, I just to add, we set our tax rates in August, but we're still, because we're proposing the budget, we have to go through that process initially just to kind of see where we're at. And like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, we are projecting lower. So I know he says flat, and that's conservative, which I appreciate, but my goal is to be lower. And the way that we can do that is because our QTR, our qualifying tax rate, is going down, but our assessed valuations are going up. And because of that, and because, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, the bond refunding that the board did approve for in 2021, we were able to capture a lot of savings. And that's why we're able to make sure that the tax rate goes lower than what is current, and that is by 0.05 at this time. My hope is to get it even further down if I can.
Do you remember what the refinance rate was on the new bonds that you
It's
did?
about 1.2, I believe, percent. So those are unheard of, and that's going to allow us to pay down that bond sooner. So we'll have those resources, which is why that's not going to affect the taxpayers, and it's not going to go up in our taxes.
So very, very proud of your work, Lizette, and
Thank
your
you.
team's work. Really, these resources are the public's resources, and therefore this important work that we do together. So with that, I do recommend the board's approval of the notification for the adopted budget public hearing and also the notification for the truth in taxation public hearing.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
That's correct. Now, the way I would say that, and Lizette is always good at catching me on this because I try and distill these to the greatest simplicity that I can. But yes, she has the numbers. She can probably tell you if you want to hear them. But the total school tax rate we project with our best analysis and evaluation will go down slightly. What is that number, Lizette?
0.05.
Like 0.05%.
Yes.
So it will, yes. Now, you know, when you look at your tax bill, you know that you have many taxing entities on there. And you also know that there's other variables like the assessed value of your particular property and stuff like that. But as far as the school's taxing, its levy rate, its school's tax rate is anticipated to go down. That's correct.
Yes.
Excuse me? Well, yes. That's already from resources that were designated and allowable from a past levy.
Adjacent ways.
Past
The
adjacent ways.
last adjacent
Correct.
ways we
But
used for
the reason I mentioned it, I'm sorry if I was confusing. The reason I mention it is just because it's an example of the criteria for use of adjacent ways monies. But yeah, that one's the board's already approved. We've already signed the papers. That one's off and running. And according to our friends at the town, they hope to have it by August.
Any other further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation Contract Renewal.
This is our workers' compensation plan, and in real simplicity, it is going up around $50,000. I'll ask Lizette to give you the specific lowdown. The main thing I would say is it is going up a substantive amount. It's largely a function of our payroll. You know, you pay premiums based on the number of employees, the payroll that you have. So as you have more of that, the rate goes up. Lizette, anything, how much is the amount that it's going up?
So it's going up 58,206, and we did already anticipate that going into this year. So because we knew our payroll, we do have higher payroll. We had raises. And then also because we've changed our ESI employees coming back program. So they also come back within a year. And before they were staying 2 or 3 years, which means that they weren't on our payroll specifically. So those changes do reflect on that, but the majority is based off of the actual payroll and the raises that we gave.
So I would recommend the board's approval of the Arizona School Alliance for Workers' Compensation contract renewal for the upcoming fiscal year 26.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just have a quick question. So I'm assuming this is part of our ERE. Is that a correct assumption?
I'm sorry, say that again?
ERE, that's part of our employee benefits?
No, it's off of, so employees pay towards some workers' comp, but the district has to match it.
Okay. All right, that answers my question.
ERE, that's another acronym I hadn't heard. Thank you, Tony.
It's what we use for all of our federal and state grants when we look at our employee wages.
Okay, so inquiring minds want
I have no idea.
It's just the payroll benefit.
Yep,
to- Okay. Very well. Let's keep it simple, right?
right.
All right.
I think this one and the next item fall into that category of when you have more expensive things, you pay more taxes. Or more, not more tax, more insurance. I think, when our payroll goes up by $1 million, we're going to pay a proportionate amount of that risk in insurance. I think this is that first young person goes out and buy their brand new car and they thought, oh, I bought a brand new car and it's nice and pretty, but then they didn't realize they were going to have, tags are $700 a year instead of 24 on the one they had. And then they have to pay higher insurance and have to, all those things that, people don't often think about when we give raises or we hire more employees or we do things like that. There's a cost on the back end. And risk is that way too on the next one. So I just think it's always good for the public to hear that, whenever we give a raise, we also have to compensate for that in other ways too. So that's it. That's all I was going to say. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Go ahead and move on to the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust Renewal. Dr. Valenzuela.
Thank you, Dr. Sparks, members of the board. As we affectionately call them, the trust. This is our liability insurance, and I'm actually really proud because although it did go up about 2%, I think we did significantly lower than what Lizette described as kind of the prevailing average across the trust.
Yes.
Ours went up 2%, but I think it reflects our intentional actions in terms of prevention and proactivity and communication. But in addition to that, it also shows our initiative and resourcefulness in terms of programs that the trust has available to us. They have these things called trust loyalty credits, and it's things that are educational, professional, and practice oriented that if we do them, if we engage in these trainings, they give us rebates or credits that reduce that cost, right? Did I say that right?
That is correct. And we do that for both the trust and for the alliance. So HR has their, up to 5% that we can. Again, that also has a factor of how much loss we have. But there are things that they could do. There's some training materials that they do. Same thing with the trust. We have, sometimes it's IT related, sometimes it's facility maintenance, just getting safety trainings and things of that nature that we still do because it's a benefit to the district, because learning and just making sure our liabilities, we reduce our liability, but they also give us a credit. And we won't see that here. We see it once it's completed and they add it at the end of the year. And both, since I can remember, we've always gotten about 5%. So we anticipate that this is the increased cost and they have to tell us that, and that's what we're budgeting, but then also we anticipate to get that credit, and we'll continue because it's a learning opportunity for us, but it helps with our risk management.
It's a win-win for everybody. And just to describe, although it is an increase, it is worth noting that as we built this beautiful new wing at Walden Grove, which Mr. Bruno walked around today, and we have another smaller but also nice one at Wrightson Ridge, and the 2 classrooms over at the ECC and the special ed room. As we continue to grow, we have more square footage, we have more space that we have to ensure and protect, right? I was just thinking of this. I would bet that most of us in the last, let's say year, have gotten even our homeowners or our car insurance bill, and they don't even ask. You just look, and the premium just went up, right? And not to mention the fact that replacing things, the cost of materials and construction and building supplies, it's all gone up. So the fact that it went up at a nominal level, I think we're grateful, and we're grateful for our intentional efforts to kind of mitigate that, and we're grateful that it's not higher than it is. Again, it's about 2%. And with that, I would recommend the board's approval of the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust renewal for fiscal year 26.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Second?
Thank you very much. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think while we pay this money, I'm always grateful for the trust when the light tower and the baseball field blows down, or, things happen in the district that are out of our control, that you would use the insurance, that we use insurance
Like a
for.
ravaging monsoon storm that floods.
That floods things, right? And
You remember that, don't you, Ms. Petersburg?
And I think, I've seen it operate at other schools towards us, right? Indoor Drum Group is up in Phoenix at a fine establishment there, and the school go out here, and we've got it all cordoned off, and it was all set up, and they forgot to turn the sprinklers off, and they ruined like $40,000 worth of equipment. The trust replaced it, right? Because we were both trust schools, so it's probably easier. But point is that this money does. You don't drive without car insurance. You have home insurance. Well, hopefully you get home insurance, because that's getting harder for some people to get, right? But and I think we added the cybersecurity thing too, and I think Mr. Manavia probably always drives him nuts. I'm always reporting things when I get the emails because I know you get a report that says report. So, because those things, we are under attack on a regular basis. And ask our large neighbor to the north what happens when their system gets shut down and they're down for weeks, months. It was a long time for them to repair all that. So grateful we have that insurance. Any other further discussion or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to consent agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Sparks, members of the board. I usually use the word robust when I describe the consent agenda because it's always so voluminous. This time it's actually pretty lean, but nonetheless, these are items that may be approved in one motion, and I do recommend approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 12. Any possible future agenda item considerations from the board? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Forthcoming, you remember, I believe you're referring to the community conversation, and what I asked every principal to do is to have a follow-up conversation with their school communities, high school versus elementary, about recommended norms from their community. So we can take that. Early fall, I expect we'll have a study session before a board meeting where the board can grapple with its ultimate goal of making whatever policy recommendations for approval foreseeably in the fall.
Thank you very much. On that same consideration, that same item, when I read the legislation, I didn't see a must have a something in place date on the new state requirement to have some structure for
It was
someone.
generally fairly, basically,
pretty vague.
It said you need to have some kind of policy in regards to how you're going to handle this issue. And of course, our goal is to do it as expediently, but also thoughtfully and thoroughly as possible. But I believe by the fall, I think we will honor that process and get to that finish line.
And I think that's reasonable. I was just making sure I didn't miss a date that maybe it was on there that someone said, oh, it has to be done by X. I didn't see that. So,
I don't think
I
so.
did not either.
all right. Thank you very much. Any further? So we'll establish the next meeting here, June 28th in this auditorium. No executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.